Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Mubin Yusuf from Physiology Department, Faisalabad Medical University, Faisalabad. Let us discuss today the early stages of the ovum development that takes place after the fertilization. What is fertilization? Fertilization is the formation of the zygote after the fusion of the male and female gametes. What happens in the fertilization that after the ejaculation, the sperm reaches the ampulla of the fallopian tubes within 30 to 60 minutes, and this action is facilitated by the presence of the prostaglandins which are present in the seminal fluid and the oxytocin that are released from the anterior pituitary gland of the females. How the sperm penetrates into the developing into the ovum. This slide shows how the sperm penetrates into the ovum. These are the different stages that how it breaks out different barriers to reach to the nucleus of the ovum. The sperm penetrates the corona radiata, that is the layer of the cells outside the ovum when it is released from the ovary, and the zona pellucida by the action of hyaluronidase. The oocytes are present while still in the ovaries. The oocytes are present in the form of primary oocyte. This primary oocyte just before the ovulation, it divides, it releases its first polar body and forms the secondary oocyte. What is first polar body? That that the ovum is containing the 26 paired chromosomes in the female. These 23 chromosomes pair then separates from its counterpart, and one of its counterpart is released, and these 23 single chromosomes are expelled in the form of in the form of first polar body. Then after the sperm enters into the ovum, the ovum divides to form the mature ovum that contains the female pronucleus, 23 unpaired chromosomes, and a second polar body is released or expelled at this time. The head of the sperm swells that at this time the head of the sperm swells that is now containing the male pronucleus and called as male pronucleus containing 23 unpaired chromosomes, and the fertilized ovum is formed by the fusion of the male and female uh, gametes at this stage to form the paired chromosomes, 23 paired chromosomes. So the zygote is containing male and female pronuclei with 23 paired chromosomes. This is the fertilized egg, or called as pre-embryo stage. Now the cleavage takes place inside the fallopian tubes. Following the fertilization, the zygote undergoes several mitotic divisions inside the zona pellucida, which and the first cleavage yields a two-celled embryo. This is called as blastomere, and it is totipotent. Now this division continues as it passes through the length of the fallopian tubes, and it rapidly divides into 32 cell stages. This process is called as cleavage, that is taking place inside the fallopian tubes. As long as it is passing through the zygote is passing through the fallopian tubes, the traveling of the zygote as well as the mitotic division of the zygote is continued, and it until it implants into the lining of the uterus. This slide shows the different stages of the cell division inside the zygote that is taking place while it is traveling through the oviduct or the fallopian tubes. On the day 1, there is first cleavage is taking place. On the day 2, the 2 cell stage is formed, and the day 3 to 4, 4 cell stages is formed, and 8 cell stage is formed on the day 4. It is on the day for different stages are continuing, and different mitotic division are continuing, and it is changing its structure. and after 8 to 9 days it then implants into the uterus. After 3 to 5 days of the fertilization, the zygote reaches the uterine cavity, and this transport is facilitated by the fluid currents inside the fallopian tubes and the cilia, which are lining the cavity of the uterine fallopian tubes, and also the V contractions of the fallopian tubes that is enhancing its transport of the fertilized ovum through the fallopian tubes. Normally, the isthmus, which is the part of the fallopian tubes near the angle of the uterus, near the two angles of the uterus, this is called as isthmus, which is the last 2 centimeter, which normally remains contracted when the fertilized ovum is passing through the oviduct. But at this time it relaxes under the effect of progesterone, which is secreted by the corpus luteum, which is present inside the female ovary. The advantage of this delayed transport is that it allows the cell divisions to take place. So the blastocyst with almost 100 cells enters the uterus. So blastocyst is a stage that enters into the uterus. This slide is also showing the cleavage stages. This is the zygote, which is fertilized. Now it is early cleavage taking place and 4 cell stages is formed. Then moruli is formed. Then the early blastocyst is formed, that is containing an outer cell mass, an inner cell mass, and a blastocystic cavity. Then the late blastocyst is formed, that is also carrying an outer cell layer that is called as trophoblast and inner cell mass, and this is at the stage that it will reach to the uterus to be implanted inside the endometrium. What is implantation? Implantation is actually embedding of the blastocyst or the developing zygote inside the uterine cavity. The trophoblastic cords are formed from the blastocyst. I have told you that this blastocyst is entering into the uterus after almost 8 days of fertilization or the zygote formation. From this blastocyst, the trophoblastic cords are forming from this blastocyst that are forming from the outer layers. The blood capillaries, sooner the blood capillaries grow into these cords. Just 21 days after the fertilization, the blood starts to be pumped by the fetal heart into the capillaries. The maternal sinuses, blood sinuses that are carrying the maternal blood are formed around the trophoblastic cords. And more trophoblastic projections develop that are called as placental villi, in which the different fetal capillaries are formed. This slide is showing how the trophoblastic cell mass is developing into the cords of the trophoblastic cell that are implanting into the lining of the endometrium. So what is placenta? Placenta is a flattened circular organ in the uterus of the pregnant mammals, nourishing and maintaining the fetus through the umbilical cord. Placenta is formed from the trophoblastic cords that are growing from the blastocyst into the endometrium of the uterus and carrying the blood from the fetus as well as from the mother, exchanging different blood between the mother and the fetus. So the functions of the placenta are different and performs different functions like respiration, nutrition, excretion, and endocrine, and also have the protective functions. Initially, in the early gestation months of the gestation, the placental membrane is still thick because it is not fully developed, so its permeability is low. Further, the surface area is small, so the different exchange of the materials takes place in low amounts. But as the gestation proceeds, the membranes become thin and the surface area enlarges, so there is increased exchange of the material between the mother and the fetus. The main function of the placenta is to provide oxygen from the mother to the fetus. The main component in the provision of the oxygen from the mother to the fetus is the difference in the partial pressure of oxygen between the mother and the fetus. The PO2 is more in the mother as compared to the fetus, so the mother oxygen diffuses from by simple diffusion from the mother into the fetus. There are other factors that are enhancing the transport of oxygen to the fetal tissue. First is the hemoglobin of the fetus is mainly the fetal hemoglobin. Fetal hemoglobin has more affinity at the low PO2 levels, it has more affinity, which has high affinity for the oxygen than in the mother's hemoglobin. Also, the Bohr effect is another factor that is causing the more oxygen supply from the mother to the fetus. The maternal blood gains the carbon dioxide which is present more in the fetal blood, but as it passes through the placenta, it releases more of its oxygen and its pH becomes high and it becomes alkaline. The maternal blood gains the carbon dioxide, the pH falls and the curve shifts to the right, releasing the additional oxygen. On the fetal side of the placenta, the oxygen is lost, the pH rises and the curve shifts to the left, allowing the additional oxygen uptake uh, uh, by the fetus. In this way, the provision of oxygen to the high provision of oxygen at the time of exchange and at the time of need is more provided by the mother to the fetus. Hemoglobin can carry more oxygen at low partial pressure of carbon dioxide than it can at high partial pressure of carbon dioxide. The nutritive function of the placenta is that the fetus uses mainly the glucose for the nutrition. So the trophoblastic cell in the placenta will transport the glucose by carrier molecule, or there is the facilitated diffusion of the carbohydrates from the mother to the fetus. The fatty acid diffuses due to the high solubility in the cell membrane, and the placenta actively transports all the amino acids with fetal concentration exceeding the maternal level. The different minerals like potassium, sodium, and chloride diffuses from the mother to the fetal. The placenta also performs the excretory functions. The excretory product of the fetus diffuses through the placental membrane to the maternal blood to be excreted with the waste products of the mother like the urea, uric acid, and creatinine. Also, the higher concentration of excretory products in the fetal blood ensures the continuous diffusion of these substances to the maternal blood. Another function of the placenta that is very much important is the endocrine function of the placenta. Placenta also releases different type of hormones that are very much important during whole of the pregnancy and that plays their part during the changes that are taking place during the human chorionic gonadotropin is one of the most important, or the HCG is one of the most important hormone that is released from the placenta. It is actually a glycoprotein that is secreted by the syncytial trophoblastic cells. The most important function is to maintain the corpus luteum, that is to increase the secretion of estrogen and progesterone till the 13 to 17 weeks of the gestation. In the early period of the gestation, it is a progesterone that is secreted from the corpus luteum, but in addition, the human chorionic gonadotropin is the main hormone that is maintaining the pregnancy onwards. It exerts also the interstitial cell stimulating effect on the testes of the male fetus and causes the growth of the male sex organ. The other hormone that is released from the placenta is the estrogen, which is actually a steroid hormone that is secreted by the syncytial trophoblastic cells. It is the estrogen I have told you earlier in my previous lectures that towards the end of the pregnancy, estrogen amount increases and it is a stimulating and produces a stimulating effect on the uterus. At the end of the pregnancy, its concentration increases about 30 times more than in the earlier gestation. It is derived from the weak androgen, that is dihydroepi androstenedione, released from the maternal and the fetal adrenal cortex. And its function in the mother is the enlargement of the uterus. It causes the enlargement of the uterus, breast, and external genitalia during the pregnancy. It also causes a relaxation of the pelvic ligaments in the preparation for the labor, so that the ligaments can be relaxed and the delivery can take place with ease. It also causes the activation of the uterus through the gap junctions and increases the contraction of the uterus towards the term. The third hormone that is released by the placenta is the progesterone, which is also a steroid hormone and it is secreted by the syncytial trophoblastic cell. Towards the end of the pregnancy, its amount reaches to 10 times higher. It is derived from the cholesterol. Its function as a mother, it provides nutrition to the developing embryo uterine secretory phase, which is mainly the nutrition provided to the developing embryo before the formation of the placenta in the early gestation. It also causes the development of the residual cells, that are the cells actually present in the endometrium, that are highly secretory cells of the endometrium, that are meant for the provision of the nutrition to the early developing embryo that is implanted into the uterus in their early gestation. It also inhibits the contractility of the uterus. The other hormone that is also released from the placenta is the human chorionic somatomammotrophon, or also called as human placental lactogen. It is also a protein hormone that is secreted by the placenta around fifth gestational week. Its function is the breast development, weak growth hormones actions. It also inhibits the insulin sensitivity and causes the decrease in the glucose utilization. So it is also meant to be. It is also said to be said to increase the increase the glucose level in the mother. It promotes the release of fatty acids. The last hormone that is released from the placenta is the relaxin, which is a polypeptide hormone and is secreted by the corpus luteum and placenta. The main function is the relaxation of the symphysis pubis ligaments. So, as I have told you earlier, that the main function of the ligament relaxation is to make the delivery easy. It also softens the cervix at the. The female undergo different physiological adaptations during whole of its pregnancy. The aim of these physiological adaptations during the pregnancy is to meet the increasing demands of the fetus during the pregnancy. If these adaptations cannot be made during the pregnancy, the fetus may suffer. So the God has created different changes in the systems, in almost all of the systems of the body of the female during pregnancy, that it meets the demands of the fetus easily. As I've told you that the changes occur in all of the maternal systems during pregnancy, and these changes are necessary to meet the demands. The changes that occur during in different systems of the female are the changes in the maternal endocrine system. The maternal endocrine system also undergo the different changes. That changes are needed to meet the demands. Anterior pituitary gland of the female causes the enlargement, that is about 50% of the normal, and it causes increased release of adrenocorticotropical hormones and TSH and prolactin hormone, and there is decrease in the FSH and LH, that is almost totally suppressed. The adrenal gland of the female also causes increased glucocorticoid secretion, that causes the mobilization of the amino acids, so as that amino acid should be provided to the developing fetus. Also, there is an increased aldosterone secretion that causes the retention of the fluid, and the thyroid gland also causes enlargement, also increased about 50% of its normal size during the pregnancy, and increases the thyroxine production, that is very necessary for the normal growth and metabolism of the developing fetus. The parathyroid gland also causes enlargement, and there is increase in the parathyroid hormone secretion to maintain the normal calcium balance, that is very much necessary for the mineralization of the bones of the fetus. As like in the endocrine system, almost every system of the body of the female changes or adapts during the pregnancy. The changes that occurs in different organs of the female are that there is an increase in the uterine size, that is very much evident, and that it increases from almost 50 grams of the non-pregnant state to 1000 grams or 1100 grams to the full term pregnant state. The breast also doubles in the size, and the vagina enlarges. The development of the edema and acne occurs during the pregnancy, and there may be masculine or acromegalic features may be evident in a female. The weight gain occurs during a female, that is approximately 12 to 17 kg of the weight gain occurs during pregnancy of a normal female with an average of 10 to 12 kg, and the most weight gain occurs during the last two trimesters of the pregnancy. The reason for the most of the weight gain in the pregnancy of the female is the increased appetite, because women feels more of the appetite during the whole of the period of the pregnancy. So there is more intake of the food. The reason for more intake of the food, that baby requires more of the food, nutrients for its growth. So there is removal of the food by the fetus, and also there are some other hormones that are increased during the pregnancy that also causes an increase in the appetite of the female. There is an increase in the basal metabolic rate of the female from 15% of the normal. So during pregnancy, the female may feel overheated. That is mainly because of the increase in the basal metabolic rate of the female. Also, there is an increase in the daily requirements of the different nutrients. That is, the iron demand is increased, the phosphate demand is increased, the calcium and the vitamin D are also should be present in increased amount. The vitamin D is necessary for the absorption of the calcium that is reduced during pregnancy. So these all of the nutrients are should be there to meet the demands of the female itself and the fetus also. The kidneys also undergoes the changes, that are the renal tubules reabsorptive capacity for the sodium chloride and water is increased as much as up to 50% of the normal. The renal blood flow and the GFR also increases up to the 50% of the normal. That is due to increase. That is mainly due to the increase in the arterial vasodilatation. This arterial vasodilatation may occur due to the nitric oxide, or due to the certain hormones that causes the increase in the GFR. The normal pregnant woman accumulates about 5 pounds of the extra water and salt due to increase in the water and salt retention. As like in other systems, there are the changes that also take place during in the respiratory system of the female. There is an increase in the oxygen consumption of the female. 20% of the oxygen consumption is increased during pregnancy. That is due to increase in the basal metabolic rate, and also the increase in the body size of the female that results in the increased oxygen consumption. So increase in oxygen consumption also causes the increased production of the carbon dioxide, and that increases the so to remove the excessive of the carbon dioxide, the minute ventilation of the female also increases. There's an increase in the respiratory rate. There is changes in increase in the respiratory rate also occurs due to increase in the progesterone that increases the sensitivity of the respiratory system to carbon dioxide. Increase in the minute ventilation occurs by 50% of the normal, and a decrease in the arterial PCO2 to several millimeters also occur. These were the changes that female met during the during whole of its gestation. Now, what is parturition? Parturition means the birth of the baby. This is a process by which the baby is delivered from the female birth canal. Towards the end of the pregnancy, the uterus become progressively more excitable, so as to deliver the baby through the birth canal. The postulated theory is that it may be due to the increase in the estrogen to progesterone ratio. Normally, the estrogen and progesterone hormones, the level of the estrogen and progesterone hormone increases throughout the pregnancy, but it is the estrogen that is increased about 30 folds of the normal during that term, at the end of the pregnancy. The progesterone actually inhibits the contractility while estrogen stimulates. Progesterone also increases, but it is the estrogen that is mainly increasing at the end of the pregnancy or at the term, and causes increased uterine contractions. There's another hormone, that is the oxytocin, released from the posterior pituitary gland, that also increases the contractions. In addition to these hormones that are released from the females, there is also a release of hormones from the fetus, developing fetus or the developed fetus. These hormones may be released from the pituitary gland of the fetus, like oxytocin, and also the adrenal glands causes the secretion of the cortisol, and there is an increase in the secretion of the prostaglandins from the fetus. The mechanical stretch of the uterine muscles also increases the contractility. That is when the contractions start, or when the fetus stretches the uterine muscles. There is an increase in the reflex contractility of the muscles, because it is a property of the smooth muscles that whenever they are stretched they causes increase in the contractions. That is why that in the twins there is an increase in the stretch of the muscles, so it causes increase in the contraction of the reflex, increase in the contraction of the uterus, and causes premature birth than in the normal fetus. The stretch of the cervix is also a factor that stimulates the uterine contractions. How the onset of the labor takes place. The Braxton Hicks contractions are the periodic cramping contractions in the uterus that takes place throughout the pregnancy. But in the initial months of the pregnancy, these are low in the frequency and strength. But towards the term, this increases towards the end of the pregnancy. So, due to these Braxton Hicks contractions that are increasing during the end of the pregnancy, the different effects occur. They causes increase in the stretching of the uterus, they causes an increase in the uterine contractility, and also causes the and also increase the contraction results increased contraction results in the delivery of the baby. The possible mechanism is the positive feedback mechanism that causes the onset of the labor. The positive feedback mechanism means that initial stimulate produces the effect that is more than the initial stimulus. The stretch of the cervix by the fetal head increases the contractility. As the Braxton Hicks contraction increases in the frequency and the strength, they causes the fetus to descend down through the uterus and towards the cervix. The stretching of the As the fetus moves down, it causes the stretch of the cervix by its head, and that in turn produces the positive feedback mechanism and increases the contractility of the uterus. The cervical stretching also causes another mechanism, that is the oxytocin release. Normally, it produces its local effect by producing effect on the uterus, so causes increased contractility, and also causes the release of the oxytocin by its long route. The strong uterine contractions and pain from the birth canal causes the neurogenic reflexes from the spinal cord that induces the intense abdominal muscle contraction. So together with the uterine contractions, these strong and abdominal contractions even stimulate more and more of the descendant of the fetal head. That in turn also causes more stretching of the cervix, that will produce the more of the uterine contractions. Is also the release of more oxytocin from the posterior pituitary gland, and this vicious circle continues. This slide shows that how the estrogen from the ovaries that is released at the term induces the oxytocin receptors on the uterus. It increases the number of oxytocin receptors on the uterus. That in turn increases the effectiveness of the more and more of the oxytocin on the uterus, and that producing for production of the more uterine contractility. The oxytocin that is released from the posterior pituitary gland from the mother's and the fetus posterior pituitary gland causes the stimulation of the uterus to contract, and also stimulates the placenta to make most of the prostaglandins. These prostaglandins in turn stimulate more vigorous contractions of the uterus. These vigorous contractions again produces more of the oxytocin from the posterior pituitary gland, and also stimulate the placenta to make more prostaglandins. So this vicious circle continues. The thing which is produced as a result of the initial stimulus is again enhancing the effect of the initial stimulus, and causes the positive feedback mechanism, and more and more of the baby is descending down the birth canal, and delivery may be imminent. The fetus drops lowers as the fetus drops lowers into the uterus. The head of the fetus, the mechanical weight of the fetal head causes the stretching of the cervical of the cervix. The stretch of the cervix produces local effect by the increasing the uterine contractions, and these uterine contractions are causing fetal head to descend more down to the cervical canal, and then these producing more and more of the cervical stretch. These cervical stretch is also causing the release of the oxytocin from the posterior pituitary gland. This oxytocin in turn increasing the uterine contractions all as well, and also release of the prostaglandin from the uterine wall. The oxytocin and prostaglandin from the uterine wall are causing the increase in the uterine contraction, and these uterine contraction are again causing increase in the cervical stretch. So, as I've told you earlier, the vicious circle continues. There are the three main stages of the labor. That is the first stage, second stage, and the third stage of the labor. This slide shows the fully developed fetus and how the first stage continues. First stage starts with the onset of the regular uterine contractions up till the full dilatation of the cervix. This dilatation of the cervix causes the fetal head to descend down and appeared at the introitus. The second stage or the expulsion stage is called when the fetus is delivered from the uterus. And the third stage is called as placenta stage, in which the after the delivery of the baby, the placenta is removed or placenta is expelled from the uterus. This is called the third stage of the labor. So starting from the start of the uterine contractions up till the full dilatation of the cervix is the first stage, the delivery of the baby is the second stage, and delivery of the placenta is the third stage. There are different durations of these stages in the primary gravida or those who are delivering their first babies. These stages are prolonged and consume more time, while in those who are delivering their with the increasing gestations or with the more and more babies to be delivered, these stages the duration of these stages become increasingly less. What is lactation? Lactation is the production of the milk and releasing of the milk to feed the baby. There are different hormones that are involved in the process of lactation. These include the estrogen, progesterone, the prolactin, and oxytocin. What does estrogen do? Estrogen, I have told you earlier that estrogen causes the growth of the ductile system of the female breast. It increases the number of ducts and causes the growth of the female breast. It is the progesterone that is actually causing the development of the lobular alveolar system. It causes the formation of the alveoli and also increases their secretory activity, as similarly as does it occurs in the endometrium, or it causes in the endometrium. So the ductal system is formed by the estrogen, the alveolar and lobular system is formed by the progesterone, but they both are but they both causes the inhibition of the production of the milk. They are only preparing the system that will later on produce the milk if the prolactin is available. Both estrogen and progesterone inhibit the milk production. It is the actually prolactin hormone that stimulates the milk production, and at the term when the inhibitory factor over the prolactin is removed and both the estrogen and progesterone are lost, there is an increase in the prolactin secretion that causes the increased milk production. And milk is after production, milk is available to the fetus, milk is available to the newborn baby by another hormone, that is the oxytocin. How the milk is available to the baby, or what is milk letdown reflex? The milk letdown reflex is that during the initial few days, during the initial few days, or we can say that when the baby feeds, initially there is no availability of the milk. But as long as it continues suckling, there is an increase in the production or availability of the milk to the fetus. How does it occur? The suckling of the baby causes the somatic nerves present in the breast to send the signals to the higher centers. These higher centers send the signals to the hypothalamus, which in turn causes the increase of the production of the oxytocin from the posterior pituitary gland. These nerve signals also causes the decrease, have negative effect on the prolactin inhibiting cells that causes the decrease in production of prolactin inhibiting hormones. Prolactin inhibiting hormone is actually the hormone that is controlling the secretion of the prolactin. Normally during whole of the pregnancy, this is present in the larger amount. As long as the baby requires the milk, there is loss, there is inhibition of the prolactin cell is removed. Inhibition of the prolactin cell is removed by decreasing the amount of the prolactin inhibiting hormone. So there is an increase in the production of prolactin from the anterior pituitary. The prolactin release from the anterior pituitary and oxytocin release from the posterior pituitary both together act on the breast of the female. The prolactin causes an increase in the milk production, and oxytocin causes the myoepithelial cells that are surrounding the alveolar cells in the female breast to contract. These together, milk production, milk secretion, and contraction of the myoepithelial cells surrounding the alveoli causes the production of the milk and ejection of the milk into the ductal system that is later on traveled and is provided to the baby on demand. So the mechanoreceptors in the nipple are stimulated, and the baby finds the milk from the female breast. So this is the milk let down reflex. The signals from the suckling goes to the higher centers, which removes inhibition from the prolactin and also causes increase in the secretion of the oxytocin. These together two hormones act on the breast and causes the milk let down. Thank you very much.